Welcome into Words with Wallace. I'm your host, Nick Wallace, coming at you. It's Thursday, February 26th, and I'm not going to lie, absolute banger of a podcast for you guys today. The much anticipated, it's an annual pod at this point, my NBA mid-season tier rankings. Now, we are more than halfway through the season, right? All-Star breaks behind us. We're definitely in the home stretch now. We're still going to say mid-season tier rankings. I am going to talk about every single NBA team, all 30. Go through them, put them on a tier list all the way from the contending teams all the way down to the tankers. So we'll probably spend a little bit more time on the teams that are a bit more relevant at this point in the season, but who knows? I could go off on a tangent at any time. No promises here. But before we get into that, before we go through all the tiers that we have, couple quick headlines to touch on. Let's start with All-Star Weekend. I will just say real quick, I thought it was better. I thought NBC's production was a bit better than what we'd had from TNT the past couple years. I didn't love that it was in like the middle of the day. Like maybe it was because of the Olympics, I'm guessing. But beyond that, I will say the dunk contest, I was pretty happy for Keyshawn Johnson. He was kind of a nobody. I know I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth. Like Mac McClung was shitting on him when we had a G Leaguer in the dunk contest. But that guy, the dancing, was it a little much? Maybe. But he was feeling himself. I don't know. I was happy to see somebody that really wanted to be out there. He got the call last second. He was decent. I felt like everybody else left stuff to be desired. So wasn't a good dunk contest by any means, but the expectations were in the basement for that. 3-point was electric. That is so cool that Dame came back, recovering from a torn Achilles, still going through rehab, and he comes out. A really cool moment. I've always been a Damian Lillard fan, so I enjoyed that quite a bit. Finally, the All-Star game, what everyone wants to criticize every year. I thought it was pretty great. We clearly saw more effort than what was seen like previous 5 to 10 years. And at least we got 3 really good quarters, or I guess 3 really good mini games going on. It was really entertaining throughout. The Kawhi 31-point quarter was awesome. It was cool to see that. See him do that in front of his home crowd. Ballmer's just like freaking the fuck out. Like he would have paid that guy under the table even more. That guy was fired up. It is just a bummer that the 4th mini game, the 4th quarter, and when you go to check the final score, people see that it was a blowout. So that was a bummer, but both teams were trying. Just the younger USA team ended up knocking down more shots. So I'm not going to totally anoint the NBA and be like, wow, great job with the format. You guys really crushed it. I do think they're onto something with the mini games. I think the world team and then having 2 different Team USA teams is a bit played out. Like, I don't necessarily think that has to be there in order to get the guys to try a little bit harder. I think mostly it was a result of the mini games having more urgency in the games right away, and then guys like Wemby, Ant, some of the younger guys in the game taking it a little bit more seriously and setting the tone early, and then everybody else kind of falling in line. I will say it was a really bad weekend for Jokic. It was kind of lame. Like, we can say whatever we want about his whole shtick off the court, but if you're the best player in the world, like, you can't give a shit and try a little bit in the All-Star game. I know that would be pretty surprising to see him care, but with everybody else trying and his game being so well suited for an All-Star game, I thought that was kind of a loser move that he just clearly mailed it in, along with some other guys in the All-Star weekend. But whatever, that's my All-Star take. We did have some other news. I mean, Chris Paul retired. Not going to spend a ton of time on this, but this was a bummer, dude. I mean, the Clippers just did him so nasty. I think on the last podcast I recorded, I was still like completely clueless, thinking Chris Paul was going to land and get some bailout deal on another team, maybe join a contending team, be a backup point guard down the stretch so he didn't have to go out like that. But no, I mean, that's how it ends for Chris Paul. He gets sent home in the middle of the night by the team that he's arguably one of the best players in franchise history for. They get into an argument, Ty Lue and him butt heads, and he's on his way. The Clippers were crushing it for a while, so maybe you can defend the move a little bit, but I just think it was totally embarrassing the way it went down. And that guy had a hell of a career. For him to last as long as he did in the NBA at 6 feet, LeBron completely distorts our view of how athletes are supposed to age right now. But Chris Paul was really good till just the tail end of his career, and at his peak was like a perennial MVP candidate, somebody I really loved watching growing up. So hell of a career for Chris Paul. I do just think it's really, really shitty and embarrassing the way that it went out for him on the Clippers. And then finally, maybe the biggest story of the past couple weeks in the NBA world is Kevin Durant's burners. I don't know if you guys are following that. I honestly don't even have a lot of information. I just felt the need to at least mention that it's going viral that he had some burner accounts that were apparently linked back to him where he was shit-talking his own teammates like Şengün and Jabari Smith and even other guys around the NBA like Jokic. I just don't really know how you're supposed to prove that. I didn't even understand some of the forums that I was looking at. Like, it didn't even look like they were Twitter burners at that point, but he didn't do a great job of denying it, which makes me feel like there is probably some merit to it, and it just adds to what's been a pretty disappointing stretch for the Rockets as of late. So we'll talk more about the Rockets in a little bit. That's all I'm going to say on the burners. If we get more information, I'd love to dive into it a little bit more on this podcast. So that's all I got. We got plenty of podcasts left, so stay tuned for the tier rankings. Let's get into our NBA mid-season tier rankings. So here we are. I'm going to share my screen. Feels like I'm at work all over again. At least I'm not operating Microsoft Teams. That shit's the worst. But here we are. You guys should be able to see the tiers now, as well as these little ads that are going to continue to pop up because my broke ass is not going to pay for the premium version of Tier Maker. So hope you guys will forgive me for that. But before we get into the actual teams themselves, let's quickly run through the tiers. I think they're all pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, you want to be at the top here with the contenders. Then we have a second tier. I think in the past I would call this like one piece away, but I'm not going to pretend like I know what's going to happen in the NBA playoffs this year. I feel like there's a lot of parity. I feel like we just saw a pretty miraculous run from the Indiana Pacers last year. So who knows? I think there's a lot of teams in that second tier that I wouldn't put them in that first tier contenders. But again, crazier things have happened. We just saw the Indiana run last year. Then we have our third tier here, round one threat. Obviously teams that I think could win one round in the playoffs, but I'm not taking them seriously to go any further than that. Then we have like the mid and fun tier, not real playoff teams, but the vibes are positive. Maybe they have a couple good things going for them. Then our fifth tier is the miserable vibes tier. I think that speaks for itself. Then we have the new wave tankers, some teams that have recently shifted in a tanking direction as recently as the deadline. And then finally, the bottom tier, the OG tankers. I think we know the teams that'll end up here. These are the teams that have been tanking all year long. So again, pretty self-explanatory. We do have these teams in a random order here, so we're just going to go in the order that they are on my screen. And again, if you guys are listening to the audio version, I know that this podcast might be a little bit easier to digest if we are on YouTube. I will try to make this pretty clear for the audio listeners here, but definitely check out At Words with Wallace on YouTube if you guys want to switch over there and follow along with the video. So the first team we have here is the Orlando Magic. To give you a picture of where they are 31-26, the 7th seed in the East, and they're 6-4 in their last 10 games. Franz Wagner is out indefinitely due to an ankle sprain that he's been rehabbing for a while now. Jalen Suggs, I love watching him, but man, he has just been in and out of the lineup. I think he's most recently dealing with back issues. I think he's actually supposed to be playing tonight, might be playing right now, but he missed a good chunk of games before that. I think my biggest take with the Magic as of recently is that the hate for Paolo Banchero has gone a little too far. I know it hasn't been the best year. I know he hasn't taken the leap that people hope. I know the shot diet is a little bit frustrating, and I know his efficiency as a shooter is what everybody comes at him for, but the dude's still phenomenally talented, right? And I do think that the situation around him in Orlando is far from great. There's question marks about the coach. If you guys haven't seen it, there's this weird Paolo Banchero theory floating around. Some genius on Twitter or some sort of social media was theorizing that maybe it's better off to just draft like an absolute bust, like an Anthony Bennett type with the first overall pick or a high pick in the draft, rather than drafting a guy like Paolo, who he looks very promising. You put all your eggs in the basket, you go all in around him, and then where does that lead you? Now, I don't think the Magic went all in by trading for Desmond Bane. I didn't love the price that they paid. I can't hate on Bane too much, even though he's not my favorite. I do think he's been pretty solid for the Magic overall, but the Magic didn't go all in. You'd still much rather take a guy in Paolo. I think that theory is so stupid. It's a great look into how ridiculous NBA Twitter is sometimes. But when we're talking about the Magic and their actual future for this year, I just think there's too much up in the air. I think with the Franz injury, I think with just, they have a lot of guys around Paolo that I just don't like. I don't think Wendell Carter is very good. Any player that they bring into their offense just cannot shoot the basketball the second that they join the team. I still think that there's some potential there. They're a big team. They play hard. Paolo really showed me something in that series against the Celtics in round one last year, so I do think that they will be frisky in the playoffs, but at the absolute best, they're a round one threat. So that's where I'm going to lead them. I do think that they're going to be a pretty heavy favorite to get a new coach next year because something in Orlando just isn't quite right. It just seems like guys consistently underperform there, and I'm not even hating on Jamal Mosley, but I just feel like he needs to go and they need to try a new coach before they start to do anything crazy with the roster. So next team here, we have the Dallas Mavericks. To give you an idea of where they are at, they are 21-36, the 12th seed in the Western Conference, and they are 2-8 in their last 10 games. The real bummer is that Cooper Flagg is now out with a foot issue. It seems to be pretty serious. I actually had the opportunity to go to the Mavericks at Lakers game in LA. It was the Thursday before the All-Star break. It was a really awesome experience. Got to go through work, but such a bummer. I could tell that Luka was going to be out. He was trending that way for a while because he was dealing with a hamstring issue. And then boom, night before the game, Cooper Flagg gets ruled out with a random foot issue that I guess took place in their previous game, but it appears to be pretty serious because he's going to be out for a while. The game was awesome, by the way. Really cool just to be there in LA, see a Lakers game. I mean, obviously I'm a Celtics guy, but being in that building for a basketball game was cool. It was an arena that I wanted to get to. Even though there was no Cooper, no Luka, I mean, LeBron kind of balled out in that game. So it was pretty cool to see. But the Mavericks lately have been a huge bummer without Cooper Flag. We also have the news that Kyrie is not returning. That was kind of a no-brainer. Once they picked their direction, once they traded Anthony Davis, there was no reason to bring Kyrie back, right? They obviously have their own draft pick for this year, so now they are incentivized to be as bad as possible. I already gave my thoughts on the Anthony Davis trade on my last podcast, so feel free to check that out. But spoiler alert, I did not like it. I just felt like they sold too early. They could have just rested Davis the rest of this year, brought him back next year with Kyrie, with Derek Lively, with year 2 Cooper Flag, and been dangerous as soon as next year. Now, the Mavs still have an opportunity to do that, but for this year, with the Cooper Flag injury, with Kyrie not coming back, and them this being the only year where they have their own draft pick, I think they're basically going to lean into the tank at this point. I would be kind of surprised if Cooper Flag comes back anytime soon. Again, 2-8 in their last 10 games. They are an easy candidate for me in the new wave tankers tier. So let's keep it pushing. Next, we have the Denver Nuggets. They are 37-22, the 4th seed in the Western Conference, 4-6 in their last 10 games. They did kick my Celtics ass last night. I mean, that was a pretty big bummer for me. I actually did all the prep for this podcast, which it did take a little bit. I'm not going to lie, guys, talking about all 30 teams, but was all set to record. And then I was like, oh, the prep took too long and the Celtics were about to tip off. And I was like, I am not going to miss Celtics Nuggets. And that one was a bummer for my Celtics. They started the game pretty well, all things considered. Jamal Murray actually was ruled out early in the game with an illness, so I thought there was a good opportunity there. But ultimately, Celtics were on the second half of a back-to-back, playing in Denver in altitude. Jokic played pretty rough in the first half and then turned it on late, and ultimately the Celtics just died like late in the third quarter. Couldn't make a shot. Kind of felt like a schedule loss, but Denver's a really good team, so that might have been the result either way. So that was a nice win for the Nuggets lately, who did need it. Again, 4-6 in their last 10 games. It just feels like their outlook for the rest of this season, a lot of hope riding on the hamstrings of Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson, right? Those are two guys that are massive to win a title this year. Jokic has slowed down a little bit after his blazing hot start to the season. Ever since he's come back from that injury, he's just been a little bit less efficient, a little bit higher turnovers. So just worth noting that. But look, I picked Denver as my 2026 champion before the season. I still think they are very much a contender, so I'm going to move them up there now. They're just still way deeper than what they were in previous versions of the team. You know, with Tim Hardaway Jr. being a really valuable bench piece for them. Jonas Valanciunas, the best backup big that Jokic has ever played with, maybe since Nurkic. Bruce Brown back in the mix. Peyton Watson took a massive leap this year. And then obviously we know what Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, and Jokic are all capable of when healthy. So I don't think it's a huge surprise that I have Denver here. They've been in my contender tier all year long. Another great team we have to talk about right here, the Detroit Pistons. They are 43-14, the number 1 overall seed in the Eastern Conference. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. Had a really fun game. On Monday, there was one of the only few games on that night. It was against the San Antonio Spurs, two red-hot teams. Obviously, the Spurs came out on top, but I overall came away more impressed with both teams. Not to sound too much like Russillo there, but I just felt like those teams were playing at a high level, really great defense, young team, playing with pace. Wasn't the best Cade game, but I still just feel like Detroit has earned my respect as the best team in the East, right? They've been that really all year long, and I feel like it's pretty legit. Now, the obvious concerns around them heading into the playoffs are just the lack of offensive creation outside of Cade Cunningham, the lack of perimeter shooting on that team. I mean, Duren has been a monster for them. Asar Thompson is a monster for them. And Cade, obviously a lock for me to be first team All-NBA. I can't say enough good things about him. But those three guys right there, Cade's three-point shooting is taking a little step back this year. I mean, I don't think teams are going to be leaving him open in the playoffs by any means, but they might be more willing to go under screens at this point. And then Duren's a non-factor from the outside. Asar Thompson's a non-factor from the outside. So you're really depending on guys like Duncan Robinson, Tobias Harris to make shots, maybe Kevin Huerter off the bench. Dennis Jenkins has been a nice story, but a lot of things unproven in Detroit, but I just feel like with the level of athletes that they have, with Asar Thompson, with Ron Holland, with Duren, who's just such a monster and really did a phenomenal job matching up with Wemby, with how strong and athletic he is. I just feel like their style of basketball is going to translate really well to the playoffs. I know everybody plays a little bit harder in the playoffs. Defensive intensity is turned up, but you can't fake what Detroit's been doing all year long. I mean, they just have 82 games of playing their ass off every single night while teams are just going to be trying to turn up that dial. Detroit doesn't need to turn it up. They've been there all year long, and I feel like there's only one team that deserves to be in the contender tier from the Eastern Conference. Now, to be transparent, I think Detroit is worse than a handful of teams in the Western Conference, but I'm going to put them in this contender tier because somebody needs to be there for the fact that they are coming out of the weaker conference. anything can happen once you get in a 7-game series in the NBA Finals. So feel pretty comfortable putting Detroit in this contender tier. Moving on, totally different side of the spectrum here. We have the New Orleans Pelicans, 17-42. They are the 14 seed in the Western Conference. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. A lot of things to talk about with this team. We should start with Zion Williamson. I don't really know what to do with him at this point. Like, he is playing and playing a really good stretch of healthy basketball, which is really all we can ask from Zion at this point. The efficiency's down a little bit, but he's still a phenomenal player. I just don't really know what the long-term plan is for the Pelicans. It doesn't really seem like he fits with this new crop of rookies that they brought in with Fears and with Derek Queen. So, maybe he's a guy that they look to move on from in the offseason. It does feel like it's run its course here in New Orleans. Trey Murphy, he can't stay healthy. It is nice that DeJounte Murray is actually back. I think he made his debut earlier this week. He's also coming off a torn Achilles, so that's a great sign. It is funny to see a team as bad as the Pelicans bring a guy back this late in the season, but that's the reality of the situation that they're in. They traded their unprotected first-round pick this past draft for Derek Queen. That pick is now looking extremely valuable. So as we all expected, as much as I like Derek Queen, he has regressed a little bit. So that trade is truly an absolute nightmare. And so they have no incentive to lose. They're actually trying to be as competitive as possible. So because their incentives are that way, because they don't have control of their own pick, maybe they're like a sneaky candidate to make a nice run during the back half of this season with how many teams there are that are going to be in the bottom two tiers with the new wave tankers and the OG tankers, everything like that. But this team very much has to go into the miserable vibes tier. I mean, we don't know what to do with Giannis. Trey Murphy, who I love, again, is not healthy, and they don't have their own pick. And they're pretty awful. So that's an easy spot to rank them. Let's keep it pushing. The Brooklyn Nets here at 15-42. Also the 14 seed in their conference. They are 2-8 in their last 10 games. Yuck. I mean, I don't enjoy watching the Nets. They do have their moments if their young guys are engaged. I mean, they are usually engaged, and they do try pretty hard under their head coach, who's done a fantastic job for them. I do think I like Traore the most of their group of, it was 5 first-round picks in this past year's draft. I think Traore is my favorite. I mean, he's still really raw. He's really skinny, too, but he kind of has some juice as a playmaker and has made some really nice moves in a handful of games that I've watched him. Really up and down, as all rookies are, especially rookies on a team as awful as what the Nets are. But can somebody go in there and save Day'Ron Sharpe? I feel like I've been toting that guy every year at the deadline, and I still love him as a backup big. Noah Clowney is kind of fun too. Claxton's a pretty serviceable big. So they have guys that just need to be rescued from the hellhole that is the Nets. And they are OG tankers for sure. It felt like their tanking strategy was pronounced when they decided to keep all 5 of their first round draft picks and were like, we'll play them all. But I don't know how many are going to be a hit. Yegor Demon just chucks threes all day. He's like the anti-Ben Simmons. I don't know, man. That's really all my Nets thoughts for you, but they're an easy choice as the first addition in the OG Tankers tier. Moving on, we have the Atlanta Hawks, 29-31, 9 seed in the East. They are 5-5 in their last 10 games. I feel like the story of the Hawks every year is they get myself and many other smart basketball people every single offseason to kind of buy in that they're going to be a serious team in the East, and it never comes to fruition. Now, I think their recent stretch has been pretty positive. I obviously didn't love their return for the Trae Young trade, but at least they have a direction. At least Jalen Johnson is the future. At least they can kind of lean into a new identity here. Clearly, there wasn't going to be a market for Trae Young, and I don't think anything he did this season was going to change it all that much, I guess. And they're still riding the high from, again, we just talked about the New Orleans Pelicans, but that amazing deal they did on draft night. So they have the more favorable pick of the Bucks for the Pelicans. At this point in time, it's pretty safe to assume that they will have the Pelicans' first-round pick, which could be as high as number 1. So you add in a lottery pick in this year's draft, which is going to be loaded, and that's part of the reason why the tanking is as out of control as it is right now. The Hawks could get really good really quick if they hit on one of these top 3-4 guys in this year's upcoming draft class. So looking at the team this season, Jalen Johnson, he is out as of a hip injury as of earlier this week, so I'm not sure how serious that is, but not a great sign for a late season injury for a guy that is their offensive hub. Jonathan Kuminga was pretty dominant in his Hawks debut earlier this week. I mean, really just flashed as an athlete. He was hitting shots from the outside, really couldn't miss, and was doing it on both ends. And I probably was a little dismissive of the Hawks making that move to get Kuminga. I mean, I was just so tired of the Kuminga storyline with Golden State, and I just really have no faith that Kristaps Porzingis is going to play ever. So I just felt like that trade was just pretty gross to me. But in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense for the Hawks. I mean, Kuminga, they have him for this year. They will definitely have to make a decision on if they want to keep him around next year. There will be contract talks this offseason for sure, but for them to take a guy in Kristaps who is not a part of their future, as unreliable as it gets, on an expiring contract, and turn it into a younger asset that might actually stick around, and I can't imagine the market for Kuminga is going to be too crazy unless he absolutely goes bonkers down the stretch. But it is a nice pickup for the Hawks, and they didn't have to give up much to get him. It is worth noting that former number 1 overall pick Zachary Risacher is now out of the starting lineup in favor of aging CJ McCollum. And I shouldn't phrase it like that. CJ's still a bucket. He's still efficient everywhere he goes, but defensively he gets hunted quite a bit. But that's a bummer, man. I mean, I was never like a huge Risacher guy, but I thought that like his ability to catch and shoot, his size, some of the passing, like connective passing that he would make along the way, and defensively he was pretty solid. I thought he would at least be like a high floor player. Like at the very least, can you give me like prime Harrison Barnes? I don't know. But at this point, he's been in a shooting slump. The coach is moving him to the bench. It's not looking good for Risacher. So overall, I think where this lands the Hawks is in the mid and fun tier. I think that they have good vibes with Jalen Johnson being the new face of that team. He's had a really fun year. Probably the favorite to win most improved. And then you have that Pelicans pick to look forward to. So this team's going to be a lot better next year, one way or the other. And at least they have a direction now. So that's where I'm going to put the Hawks. Now we have to talk about the Utah Jazz. They are 18-40. They are the 13th seed in the Western Conference, and they are 3-7 in their last 10 games. Unprecedented levels of tanking from the Jazz. I think they were the ones that came away with a $500,000 fine from Adam Silver right before the All-Star break for doing some crazy shit and not playing any of their guys in the fourth quarter. It's honestly hard to keep track of what game that was because it's guys in and out of the lineups. Even when Lauri Markkanen and those guys play, like they're not playing at the end of games. I mean, I get it with the draft class that apparently is supposed to be super loaded here, and like what else are you playing for if you're the Jazz? And tanking works, so the Jazz are going to continue to do it. But on the topic of their current roster, it's not looking good. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. is out for the season. I don't even remember what surgery it was. It felt like it's a real issue, but it probably didn't need to be a surgery right now. And then you also have Walker Kessler ruled out much earlier in the season. Nurkic was actually a guy that was playing really well for them at the center position, at least statistically. He was kind of filling it up. He's always been a really good offensive player. Just defensively, he's a nightmare. He has getting nose surgery, so he's out for the season with that. I mean, is that like cosmetic? Like, does he just wanted to get a little nose job? Actually, I have no idea. No idea what that's about. But out for the season, nose is definitely a new one. Keontae George has been out of the lineup with injuries too, and I doubt that they're going to be rushing to bring him back anytime soon. And now, earlier this week, it was announced that Lauri Markkanen is getting an MRI. So this is really gross. They are obviously OG tankers at this point in time, so we're going to move them there. And that's probably going to be the last time I talk about the Jazz this season, or at least I hope so, right? I mean, once they bring back Jaren Jackson Jr., Lauri Markkanen actually plays next year, another year of Keontae George, you have Walker Kessler back in the mix. I mean, it's going to be a pretty fun team there. Ace Bailey, his development, and whoever they get in the upcoming draft. I mean, regardless of what happens in the lottery, they're going to be in a much better spot next year. Let's keep it pushing, talk about the Pacers. They are 15-44, the last seed in the Eastern Conference. They are 2-8 in their last 10 games. On my last podcast, I did talk about the Zubac trade. I felt like they gave up way too much to get him between the 2 first-round picks, one of them that could be as early as this season. Also really was always a Mathurin guy, so didn't understand why they were in such a rush to get rid of him. But no small tanking fine is going to stop them. Just like the Jazz, who we just talked about, they were also hit with a $100,000 fine for tanking. Guys like Nembhard is in and out of the lineup. Same thing with Aaron Nesmith. It's hard to keep track of with them as well. I guess like the only storyline of like their current roster is that, is Jarris Walker good? I can't really tell. He's kind of had some moments as of late. He was kind of written off after being a first-round pick a couple years ago, but he's had some real flashes this year, so we'll find out if he actually sticks around in the rotation next year. But the Pacers, ever since the first couple weeks of the season where they had an onslaught of injuries, their direction has been pretty clear this year, so they are going in the OG tankers tier as well. Next, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, 36-23. They are the 5 seed in the West, and they are 6-4 in their last 10 games. I somehow feel like Anthony Edwards' leap this year is maybe under-discussed. I know he just got a lot of press for, well, some press anyway, for being the All-Star Game MVP, and, you know, all of his off-the-court stuff is really fun. His interviews are great. The stuff with Adidas is really fun. But, man, every single year of this guy's career, he's gotten so much better. The shooting is out of control. His efficiency as a scorer. For most of the season, he's been the closest thing they have to a point guard. Maybe you want to put Ayo Dosunmu in that camp, but I don't really think he's completely changing the game for the Wolves. I mean, I feel like the early returns on him are mixed, but I still really like the idea of going out and getting a guy that can handle the ball at the end of games, theoretically push Ant off the ball a little bit more. And along with Anthony Edwards' leap, we have to talk about the leap for Jaden McDaniels as well. I mean, his shooting, scoring, the way he can create his own shot has been taken to another level this year. The defense has always been there. I mean, he had 5 blocks in the first half of a game against the Blazers, I think, last night. And then Gobert. I mean, he continues to be so crucial to their team. The defensive numbers with him on and off the court are as crazy as they've ever been. And I just feel like in general, the theme of this team is they're just kind of flying under the radar. They've been to the Western Conference Finals back-to-back years. I love the Timberwolves. They're really fun to watch, and I just feel like they have all the makings of what a team needs to succeed in the modern NBA. So for the Timberwolves, they're actually going to be the first team in the crazier things have happened tier. I wouldn't put them in like the top 3 seeds in the West, but I think they're probably my 4th favorite team in the West right about now. And I just have to put a little bit of respect on their name because of the development of Jaden McDaniels and what they've done in the playoffs the past couple of years. And just a quick reminder, I mean, they beat Denver the year after they won the title in 2023, a pretty healthy Denver team, all things considered. Like, again, crazier things have happened. The Wolves could definitely make a deep run this year. Next, we have the New York Knicks. They are 37-22, the 3 seed in the East, and they are 6-4 in their last 10 games. They just got smacked by the Cavs earlier in the week. Karl-Anthony Towns is actually kind of improving as a shooter. I mean, it's been a really down year from him as far as outside shooting, and the volume is really down as well. But he's picked it up a bit, just shooting the ball, scoring the ball. And to be totally honest with you, I feel like the Knicks' playoff hopes and how deep of a run that they make is really riding on Cat's ability to be the X factor. They need to get more out of him offensively to make up for the defensive shortcomings. Can he actually avoid foul trouble and all the stupid fouls that he finds himself in every game? I kind of doubt it, but I do think that if they unlock the best version of Cat, it's not like he's washed up. I just think he had a rough start shooting the ball in the season, and his usage kind of fluctuates game to game. So if they can get the most out of him, I do think this Knicks team is actually better and has a higher ceiling than last year, right? I mean, Alvarado, I've never been an Alvarado guy, but he's a perfect Knick, man. He's already had some really awesome games for them. He's been shooting the ball well. Defensively, the identity that he has, I mean, he's perfect for New York. He's literally from there. So that was a great move to get him for next to nothing. Mitchell Robinson might be the most important role player in the entire NBA. Gut check, I really have done basically zero research, but as of right now, I would say that Mitchell Robinson is probably my 6th man of the year. He is just so impactful as a rebounder. And the difference between him being in the lineup and Cat is just a completely different look defensively, completely different on the glass. I just feel like he is easily the best rebounder in the NBA, and that is such a valuable piece of that Knicks team and unlocking the best version of them. And then you got the other guys who go deeper down the bench. Maybe Miles McBride comes back. Kolek has had some moments. Clarkson's had some moments. Landry Shamet has been really important to them as of late. And Coach Mike Brown actually uses his bench a lot more than Tom Thibodeau has done in years past. So I would say the Knicks have really as good of a shot as anybody in the Eastern Conference besides the Pistons. So for that reason, with them being in that weaker conference, I'm going to put them in the crazier things have happened tier. I feel like this is a very fair spot for the New York Knicks in that second tier. Another great team in the East here, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are 37-23, so just a half game behind the Knicks. They are the 4th seed in the East. They are 8-2 in their last 10 games. They were actually, I believe, 9-1 in their last 10. And then last night, they somehow lost a stinker to the Bucks. They were missing Mitchell and Mobley and Harden in that one. Now, the biggest news that has come out of Cleveland this week is that Harden actually has a thumb fracture, but it seems like he's planning on playing through that. I actually don't know what hand it is. I don't know how much that's going to affect his shooting, his ball handling, really everything he does on the court. But to give James Harden a lot of credit, you can say whatever you want about him quitting on teams and his defense and whatever. That guy's about as durable as it gets. Like, he plays in games. He wants to be out there. He seems to be happy in Cleveland. I mean, the honeymoon Harden phase is in full swing. And I will just say that the Cavs' deadline moves, early returns are really positive. I mean, the Hunter deal is a no-brainer. He's now in Sacramento. We'll talk about them in a bit. But I think he's out for the year with an eye injury. So maybe that would have happened in Cleveland. Maybe not. Maybe the Kings were just like, hey, man, you can just go home for the season. I don't really know. But to get Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder back in return, Schroeder giving them a consistent source of offense off the bench, and Ellis is just an energy maniac on defense. So they are a loaded team with a number 1 option that I really trust in Donovan Mitchell, who has an argument to be made for first-team All-NBA. I'd probably slot him in at second-team All-NBA. I love Donovan Mitchell. The tricky thing with them is that every year, the past, 3-4 years, they've been an awesome regular season team, and they just always choke in the playoffs, and then they went out and got James Harden to help fix that. So he obviously has his own playoff baggage, so it's going to be interesting to see how that mixes. But the ceiling of the team is just higher with Harden than what it was with a banged up Darius Garland. So, as much as you can question the move and the long term future of what it does for the Cavs, I feel like they're the really trendy pick of everybody coming out of the East right now because of how well they've been in this recent stretch, because of the deadline moves. They seem to be figuring it out. They're probably a bigger threat to catch the Celtics for the 2 seed than the Knicks are right about now. Just giving you my perspective as a Celtics fan, I'm more worried about the Cavs. But I would just put them right there next to the Knicks in the crazier things have happened tier. Let's keep it moving. We have another Eastern Conference team here, the Miami Heat. So the Miami Heat are 31-28. They are the 8 seed in the East. They are 5-5 in their last 10 games. So they've cooled off a bit. They had a pretty hot start to the season where they really reinvented their offense, playing with pace, not doing many pick and rolls, really just like catching, driving, kicking. That was kind of their entire offense. Now it's changing a little bit. Tyler Herro's finally playing a little bit more consistently. He's been dealing on and off with injuries really all season long, but they are well coached. They play hard on both ends. I just don't really see the ceiling with this Miami team, to be totally honest with you. They don't really know what to do with Kel'el Ware. His minutes are fluctuating here and there. You know, Jaime Jaquez has been a really fun story. Also another candidate for 6th man of the year. Norm Powell got that all-star bid. I'm happy for him. Not sure if he deserved it, but there's no real ceiling with the Miami Heat. It feels like every year they've been rumored to get a big name at the deadline, and even though we had some superstars get traded, the Heat did not land anybody at this deadline. And so I guess they're kind of in between tiers for me. I don't think they're an actual threat to beat any of the top 4 seeds in the Eastern Conference. And I wouldn't say their vibes are miserable, right? I mean, they're always in the mix and nobody wants to play them. So I'm going to put them in mid and fun. At least they have a fun style. At least they're kind of different from all the other teams on League Pass. So that's where I'll put the Miami Heat, in the mid and fun tier right next to the Atlanta Hawks, at least for now. Next, we have the Washington Wizards. Man, we are just flying through the Eastern Conference here. What's going on? We have 16-41 record for the Wizards on the season. They are the 13th seed in the East. They're 4-6 in their last 10 games. And they were my winners of the deadline. Again, go to my last podcast, check that out if you want to get my thoughts there. Now that they won the deadline, I don't really plan on watching them the rest of the season. I mean, they're in full tank mode, so I'm just going to move them to the OG tankers right now. I am pretty excited to see them next year, right? Once they get Anthony Davis back in the mix, they get Trae Young back, presumably land a pretty high pick in this year's draft. But they have some keepers on that team, like Keyshawn George. I mean, Alex Sarr especially. I'm really excited to see him on a semi-competitive team. He's got some pretty eye-popping numbers this year, and I really like him when I watch him play, but they're just so non-competitive most of the time that it's really hard for me to make sense of just how good he really is. We're talking numbers better than Mobley at this point in his career, and people loved gassing Mobley, especially early on, so that's kind of worth noting. But I don't know if any other keepers are going to emerge. I guess if you're a Wizards fan, that's kind of what you're watching for. Like maybe, I mean, Trey Johnson's going to stick around for a while either way, but maybe he really pops down the stretch in this season. Maybe we get to see more consistent health from Bilal Coulibaly. He's a guy that has a lot of upside, especially on the defensive end of the court. So that's kind of what this next couple months is going to be for the Wizards. Just the team taking a close look at their young guys, figuring out which ones they want to keep when they presumably get a bit more competitive next year. Next team we have here, the Toronto Raptors. They are 34-25. They are the 5 seed in the East. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. On the season, I'd say that like my story with the Raptors is that Scotty Barnes has grown on me a lot. I just feel like he is such a winning player. I saw some stuff as recently as yesterday of people talking about how he's like a lock for Team USA, which I completely agree with, especially when we're compiling like the best players in the world to play together and build a cohesive team. You need players like Scotty Barnes to do all the little things. He's a really unique and phenomenal player. It's just the talent around him, I don't really know. Like, I guess now that Jakob Poeltl is back, that they finally have a real center. I mean, Colin Murray-Boyles has done some really cool stuff, especially defensively for them, and he's filled in pretty admirably as like a quasi center for them while Poeltl's been out because they really don't have another big on the roster. But without Poeltl, I just feel like they were just going to get steamrolled and absolutely smoked on the glass with whoever they play. They actually played the Spurs really close last night and nearly came away with the win. So maybe that's something. Maybe that's just the Spurs getting a little complacent there. I don't really know what to make of that. But I just feel like for them, I'm a little in between tiers, right? Like, I don't think they're actually a threat to win in round 1, though. Like, the Magic, I just feel like their ceiling is still a lot higher. That's why everybody's so frustrated with them. Whereas I look at a team like the Raptors that's kind of overperformed a little bit this year, but they are still a fun team. I'll give them that. I don't really know what the long-term plan is. They're spending so much money on that starting lineup, but I think they're having a pretty fun season. And for them to be a top 5 seed in the East, you're not going to get mad at that. But I'm not taking them seriously. If they somehow got matched up with the Celtics, I'd relish that matchup. I wouldn't be worried about it at all. So I'm going to put them in mid and fun with the Heat and the Hawks and call it a day for our Raptors here. Keeping it pushing, we have the Golden State Warriors. They are 31-28, the 8 seed in the West, 4-6 in their last 10 games. Curry's still out with a knee injury. I would love to see him play basketball again this season. My fantasy team would also love to have Steph Curry back this year. But what's the point? Like, truly, what is the point? Golden State has just been a miserable watch for me lately. I mean, they might be the team that I avoid the most. Now, it's not all their fault. Like, Curry's obviously banged up right now. Jimmy Butler out for the year. That's unfortunate. Draymond's been missing a couple games here and there. But, like, it's just such a weird group. I mean, it was cool to see Kristaps play against the Celtics a couple nights ago whenever they matched up like last week. Glad that he was able to make his debut for the Warriors when he played the Celtics, and then immediately they got ran out the gym. DeAnthony Melton is actually a really awesome story that he's been so productive and actually essential to their offense coming off a torn ACL. You know, Moody and Podziemski, I feel like, have taken steps in the right direction this year as well. But the future of the team is just so grim. The lineups are all over the place. Kerr is still playing like 13 guys a night. I'm not really anticipating Kuminga continuing to dominate for the Hawks like he did with his debut, but there's really no chance that Kristaps plays, and there is a real chance that Kuminga looks really good here. And I just feel like the heat on Steve Kerr and just kind of what he's done with that roster and the front office, it feels like we're steamrolling toward the end of an era. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but this is an easy choice for miserable vibes around Golden State. Not entirely their fault, but they've kind of made their bed not trading some of their younger players a bit earlier the past few years and building around Steph Curry when those guys still had value. So moving on, we have the Houston Rockets. They are 36-21, the 3 seed in the West. They are 6-4 in their last 10 games. I really like the Rockets. I actually had them as maybe the third best team in the NBA, or like my third favorite team to win it all heading into this season. And I just feel like their offensive flaws are just too much to take them seriously. Now, they did obviously lose Fred VanVleet before the season, which is not something they were anticipating. They never really made a move to fill that spot. And then more recently lost Steven Adams like a month or two ago. And that was kind of their identity, was just crashing the boards, how many more shots they were getting than their opponents on any given night. All of those second chance points where they were just dominating with their size. Adams was a huge part of that identity, and they're missing that. But how reliable was a strategy built around missing and then getting your own rebound going to be in the playoffs anyway, especially when we're talking about elite teams in the Western Conference? I mean, the KD burner story can't help anything. We touched upon that at the top of the podcast. It definitely can't help with the vibes. I definitely think some of the teammates are probably giving him the side eye in the locker room, and it really sucks because I love Kevin Durant. He's having an unbelievable season when you consider his age and experience. Like, he's awesome right now. He's probably the best player on the Rockets even still, and it just feels like their offense is really predictable. Maybe it's an Ime Udoka problem with the creativity on offense and some of the decisions at the end of games, but it just feels like, all right, it's Durant's turn. Okay, it's Şengün's turn now. And people keep talking about Reed Shepherd like he might be the key that unlocks this offense, and I do think that he gives them the highest ceiling and could fix some of the issues on offense. But even he's up and down. He's a young player. He did nothing in year one, not entirely his fault, and he's got some concerns defensively just because of the size. So I just don't see it. I feel like they've absolutely been leapfrogged by the Spurs and other teams that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And I don't even really feel comfortable putting them in the crazier things have happened tier, because I just feel like with them in the Western Conference, at least they're a top 3 seed, so they have that going for them right now, but I can't say that their recent play has given me a ton of confidence. This might be too reactionary, but I'm going to put them in round 1 threat. I mean, I could see them winning a round in the West, depending on that matchup for sure, but I just don't really see any world in which they make it to the finals. They've lost too much, they didn't do anything at the deadline. I don't think it's their year. Now, they could be back in the mix next year. Adams back, VanVleet back. They can adjust and tinker with the roster, but you can't guarantee you're going to get the same productivity from both Adams and VanVleet as they're getting older, and then also Kevin Durant next year. So Houston has some interesting decisions to make this offseason. Next, we have the Sacramento Kings. If I talk about the Kings for more than a minute, I'm just a sicko. I mean, take the microphone away from me, for God's sakes. 13-47. They're the 15 seed, dead last in the Western Conference, and they're 1-9 in their last 10 games. I'm struggling to keep track of everybody that's out for the season for them right now. Levine's out, Sabonis is out, Hunter's out. I guess Keegan Murray's back as of like a month ago or a couple weeks ago, something like that. They had previously lost 16 straight games before beating Memphis the other day. Now, to give the Kings a crumb of credit, they might earnestly be competing. Like, they might be the only earnest tanking team we have. They didn't even really try to tank heading into the season. They're like, yeah, let's get another former Bull in here. Like, why not? But here they are, and they are just awful. I mean, they are just a truly terrible team. I do have a question for them. Like, how many long-term players do they have in the team? It feels like Sabonis, it's been rumored that he's available here and there, so I don't think he's long for this team. I think they kind of want to move on from him. So you look past that. LaVine, hasn't been a winning player and is hurt all the time. DeRozan's getting a lot older, so maybe it's Keegan Murray and like a few of the rookies. Like Reno was a cool story, and Dylan Cardwell was fun, but he's hurt too. So I don't even know, man. The Kings are awful. They are OG tankers for sure. At least Westbrook's running around out there, getting to be the fullest version of himself at this point in the career. It'll be interesting to see where he lands next year because he's like a vampire. I don't know. He can't stay on the same team twice. So that's all my Kings thoughts for you. Totally different side of the spectrum here. Let's pivot to the Oklahoma City Thunder. 45-15, the 1 seed in the West and currently the best record in the NBA, but they're 6-4 in their last 10 games. Now, the story for them recently is that SGA, J-Dub, Jalen Williams, and AJ Mitchell have all been out for a while now. And I was actually really fired up for not just my Celtics game against the Nuggets yesterday, but the earlier game, also on ESPN, was Pistons versus Thunder. And I was hoping like maybe Shea was going to be back in the mix, maybe we'd get some good news. And instead, the Thunder went the opposite direction and just rested all the guys that they did have available. Like Hartenstein didn't play, Chet didn't play, Caruso didn't play. All those guys played the night before. So they kind of mailed it in for a national TV game. I do just want to say the Thunder, for them being as outspoken as they were about the Jazz tanking, like they probably had some pick incentive for they didn't want the Jazz to do bad and the Jazz are tanking. So I think it was Sam Presti like publicly said something about the Jazz tanking, and it was a kind of a nasty quote. Can we just hit them with a little fine with the player participation policy for them mailing it in last night? Because that would have been a badass slate to have Thunder, Pistons, and then Celtics, Nuggets. And maybe I'm just bitter because both games were a bust. But whatever. I feel like the story for the Thunder right now is obviously their health. I mean, they still deserve to be the favorites to win the NBA title. I'm sure if I check the odds right now that they are. SGA is, I believe, coming back next game. I think they're playing Denver tomorrow night, I want to say. So it is on the mend, and they are a younger team, so maybe you're less concerned about them compared to like a Denver or something like that. But still, I mean, they just came back off of a deep playoff run. They went all the way to Game 7 in the NBA Finals last year. It's hard to play basketball as competitive and as hard as they do, especially on both ends of the court, even for younger guys. So I'm just throwing it out there that we need to see guys healthy. Just in this intermittent period where they've been kind of mailing it in with Cason Wallace, who of course he's cooking now. Of course Cason Wallace in an expanded role is suddenly perfectly fine to operate an NBA offense at a really high level while still giving you the same defense. So he's been balling out. It is kind of funny that McCain still like barely plays despite all the injuries that they have. So I'm not a McCain guy, so it'd be kind of funny if that trade blew up in their face, but whatever. My biggest ask for the Thunder right now, especially while everybody's hurt, is can we see a little bit more offense from Chet? I mean, he was on my All-Star ballot, very deserving to make the All-Star team. He's so valuable the way he fits into their team with the shooting, and he's such a great defensive player. I mean, he's phenomenal. I'll take him over to Evan Mobley any day of the week. But can we get a little bit more offense? Like, why are we scoring like 12 points a game when Jalen Williams is out, when Shea is out, when Caruso's out? Like, why are we not funneling more offense into Chet Holmgren? Why is he not taking that step? Now, the Thunder probably won't have to worry about that in the playoffs, but that's just me being picky. So, health is a real concern for this team, but there is no doubt at all, they are contenders. And I'll even put them right ahead of Denver, if it'll let me. There we go. Because they are truly deserving of being the favorites to win the title, but we'll see. We'll see what my pick ends up being in a couple weeks here. So, let's keep it moving. We have to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. They are 26-31. They are the 11th seed in the East, but they are 8-2. 8-2 in their last 10 games. What is going on? I was pretty nasty about the Bucks because I was just really tired about the Giannis story, and there were some Bucks fans that I know being a little cocky about just the concept that Giannis, it's a good thing that he didn't go, and all the offers from the other teams, they were lowballing the Bucks, they were smart to hold him. Yeah, man, all this is going to boil up again in June, in July. Just buckle up for that. So I really want to put the Bucks in miserable vibes. I'm just going to get right down to it because I feel like the Giannis story was nasty. I think the team generally, besides Giannis, stinks. I think it's a bad team. I went as far as to say, you remove Giannis, it is the worst roster, 2 through whatever, compared to every other team. I might have to walk that back. I might have to. I mean, 8-2, like, they do have wins against OKC and Cleveland in the stretch. Now, I did just mention Cleveland was last night. It was a close game. Could have gone either way, and Cleveland was missing everybody. Same thing with that win against the Thunder. That was the Thursday before the All-Star break, and the Thunder, just like the Cavs, were resting everybody. But to the Bucks' credit, they can only play the guys that are put on the court in front of them, and they've done well. And, you know, the other 6 games that they've won in a recent stretch have all been pretty bad teams. So, you know what? I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to put the Bucks in miserable vibes. I'm going to do it. I don't care that they're 8-2. I don't care that KPJ kind of balling out. Ryan Rollins, I really like him. He's a great story as well. Also could win Most Improved. I think he's been phenomenal. But Miles Turner has been a total dud. That contract looks awful. Kuzma, I don't care what type of game he has. That guy's garbage. AJ Green, fun player. Derry Bird, I can get behind that. I mean, I don't individually hate everybody on the Bucks, but I just feel like the vibes are bad because they wasted another year of Giannis. There's no point in bringing him back. I mean, maybe they think they could make a little run, but they're still in the 11 spot right now. So they're still on the outside of the play-in looking in. I think the vibes are bad. I don't think we should see Giannis this year, and I think the storyline of Giannis being traded is going to bubble up in a couple months anyway. So that's my Bucks take. You guys can let me know if you're mad at me. Maybe they should be mid and fun, but I don't think the Bucks are a fun situation. So next we have the Blazers, 28-31, 9 seed in the West, 5-5 in their last 10 games. I don't like the Blazers. I really don't. I feel like I'm opening up. We're 20-something teams in at this point. Like, they're just not my cup of tea. What do you want me to say? I mean, they are having a fun season, I guess, but I don't understand the long-term vision of the team. I am reluctantly coming around on Klingon. I just hated the way he moved on a court. I just felt like the foot speed was horrendous, and it took away from a lot of the rim protection stuff. And I never believed in the outside shot, but that's kind of come together lately too. So I do have to admit that, you know, Klingon, you'd probably take him in a redraft over Risachet right now. I'll give you that. And it would be really cool if Scoot Henderson starts to ball out now that he's back in the mix. But I don't get the long-term vision for this team. Like, Damian Lillard's going to be back next year. Like, who's your franchise guy? Who is the guy that the Blazers put on the posters? I guess it has to be Denny after he got an all-star bid in what's a pretty loaded Western Conference and whatnot. But I thought that was horseshit that guy even got in. And I still feel like this season could be pretty fluky. And, you know, it's nice that he puts up big stats. He also turns the ball over 6 times a game and just foul baits worse than anybody else in the NBA right now. So am I being a hater? Yes. But I think that this team does belong in miserable vibes. Like, you're having a fun season, and where did that get you? 28-31 on the outside of the play-in race in the West. Now, they could leapfrog a team in like the Suns, who we'll talk about in a little bit, with the injuries that they have and whatever, but I'm not banking on that. Like, I just don't really understand what this team is. I know they've had injuries here and there, and they don't even have their own pick this year. So they don't have their own pick. They're extremely mid, and you could make that argument just for not having the pick alone in this draft compared to all these tanking teams that are having a real shot at landing a Peterson or a Boozer or a Devansa. Like, that kind of separates them from the pack. So I'm going to put them in miserable vibes, and I'm going to stick to that. So next we have the Clippers, 27-30, 10 seed in the West, right behind the Blazers. They are 5-5 in their last 10 games. And I got to say, I really like the Mathurin experience so far. He's had some monster games and some games that came down to the wire for the Clippers, and I think he's been a phenomenal add to that team. He fits in nicely with the youth movement they have with Miller and Sanders, and, you know, Garland still on the younger side. Hopefully he'll be back in the mix here pretty soon. I will just say that if the Clippers were any type of good, I mean, they'd probably have to be pretty good. We'll say, like, if they were a top 5 seed in the West, there would be an extremely strong Kawhi Leonard MVP case. Like, this guy has been lights out this year. It's not just the All-Star game. He's had, the 55-point game. He's been a monster on both ends of the court. I know defensively, like, they let other guys be the primary on-ball defenders, guys like Chris Dunn and whatever, but he's still a monster on both ends of the court. And you can even see it at the end of games. Like, if there's somebody on the other team that's cooking, like if they're playing the Nuggets and Jamal Murray's going crazy, like, he's not going to guard Jamal Murray all game, but for that last possession, they're like, yeah, I want Kawhi. Derek Jones, every time he plays the Celtics, he gets hurt, so I really hope we don't play the Clippers anytime soon, because I really like Derek Jones. He's been nice for them lately. Garland should be back soon, and they could easily climb up to the 7 seed in the West. They would be my team to pick to make a little run down the stretch here. I know they've been much better as of late and then cooled off a little bit since the deadline, but I still think they're much better positioned than teams like the Suns and the Warriors and the Blazers, who are technically ahead of them in the standings. Now, all that being said, where does that lead them? I don't think they're a threat to win a playoff series this year with how loaded the West is. So I'm going to put them in mid and fun, which it's been a while since the Clippers have been in the fun tier, but I think that Harden deal could end up working out for both sides. It's nice that they got a little bit younger. I love the return that they got for Zubac, and Kawhi's balling out of control. So they're a really fun league pass team as well, and I love Mathurin. So yeah, I feel like mid and fun is definitely the right spot for the Clippers. Next, we have the Hornets. 28-31, 10 seed in the East, 7-3 in their last 10 games. It feels like they've been just one of the best teams in the NBA for the last month, but they're still somehow under 500. Talent-wise, like if you really just had to rank the teams in the East right now, are they a top 5 team in the East? Outside of, the Celtics and the Knicks and the Pistons and the Cavs? I think so. I think that their offensive ceiling is just through the roof. I mean, Khan and Brandon Miller and LaMelo just chuck threes all day long. Their offense is unbelievable. I think they have Diabate back now after his suspension. That should be wrapping up here pretty soon. If not, that'll be a big boost for them because he was awesome filling in at the center position. I really like the Hornets. They're super fun to watch. I mean, they've been league pass crack for years, even when it was just the combination of LaMelo and Eric Collins alone, just the best announcer in the game. So I love them. I feel like Khan, especially now that Cooper Flagg has his foot injury, like he might be moonwalking to the Rookie of the Year. I mean, he had a very good argument for Rookie of the Year to begin with. I would have probably given it to Cooper. Cooper stayed healthy, but this is a historic season. What Khan is doing, the scoring, the shooting percentages, the efficiency, how proficient he is on defense as well. Like, what a hit. I feel like in a redraft, he would be a no-brainer pick at 2. And I know that's tricky to say because I really like Harper. I really like Edgecombe, and all these guys have long careers ahead. But it's actually ridiculous how good Con Knuppel is this early on into his career. I can't wait until there's 7 Knuppels in the NBA. It's also, just to go, this is a longer podcast. We can go on a tangent here. The story of Bill Simmons giving Con Knuppel a ride home after Con went on Bill Simmons' podcast is so funny. Bill Simmons just didn't want to put him in an Uber because he's like 20 or 19 or something like that. I'm like, he's a grown man. He's scoring 20 points a game in the league on insane efficiency. I don't know. That was like, I was just like tears in my eyes when I heard that for the first time. Maybe you guys, we have some Simmons heads listening to this as well. But whatever. The Hornets, their tier, yeah, we should get back to that. They're mid and fun. I mean, because of the seed that they have, like they're going to have to be matched up against probably like the Pistons. Best case scenario, it's like either the Celtics or the Cavs at the 2 seed. As much as I like the Hornets and as much as they'll be a pain in the ass to play, if they keep up this same trajectory in the playoffs, I don't think they're a threat to win a playoff series this year. I do think I need to put a little bit of respect to the teams at the top of the Eastern Conference. I think they are the teams that people would want to avoid from the tier that they're in the Eastern Conference because of how good they've been lately, but they're still just mid and fun. They're such a fun team, but they're not a threat to win a playoff series. Next, we have the Los Angeles Lakers. 34-23, 6th seed in the West, 5-5 in their last 10 games. They're frauds. The Lakers are frauds. I mean, kidding, but like not really kidding. I was pretty thrilled where the game on Sunday where they had the marquee matchup with the Celtics in LA. Celtics went in there, beat the brakes off them. That was awesome. I just feel like this team is just so flawed. I mean, they're clearly at a crossroads. It very much feels like they're just waiting until the offseason. They'll probably be able to sign a big free agent or make some trade, or some angry superstar will want to go there and play with Luka and live in LA. Like, they're going to find a way to come out on top. Like, their outlook long-term is still phenomenal because of the result of that Luka trade, obviously. But the vibes around the team are kind of deteriorating. It was a very weird end-of-game situation in a recent one against the Magic where they drew up a play for Luka. He looked like he had a look to get a good shot off down 1 at the end of a close game. And instead, he kind of hesitated, and then he pump faked, and then he passed it to LeBron, and LeBron had to take some crazy turnaround, and quotes after weren't great. It just feels like the vibes are terrible. But it makes sense. I mean, the team is not designed to be built around Luka Doncic right now. They don't have enough shooting. They're way too dependent on guys like Marcus Smart, who was like a sleeper agent in the game against the Celtics. He was like 0 of 7, just bricking everything. He was awful in that one. Rui's still essential to what they do. LaRavia and Kennard are essential to what they do. Ayton obviously has been at the forefront of some weird quotes, and an article came out about him earlier today. It just feels like the vibes are terrible with the Lakers. Now, at the end of the day, they have Luka, who could just totally take over and dominate a playoff series. And LeBron, to his credit, has just continued to get better as the season has gone along. So a lot of respect to him as well. But I mean, they're a round one threat. I think they're right there with the Rockets and the Magic. Depending on the matchup in round one, they could absolutely make some noise, but they don't have the horses to defend and run and survive for a playoff series. It's out of the question. So I don't even think they belong in that second tier. I think they're right there in the third tier, round one threat, and that's about it. Next, we have the San Antonio Spurs, 42-16, currently the 2 seed in the West. They're nipping at the heels of the Thunder because they are 10-0 in their last 10 games. Now, I had the opportunity to see them in person. They play a couple games in Austin every year. I actually went to the same games last year, and those were the first games that Wemby was ruled out for the entire season with the blood clot in his shoulder. So less fun last year, much more fun last week when I got to go, saw them play the Suns. Dude, seeing Wemby in person was so sick. I mean, it is... I just felt like a kid all over again. I mean, I still am like a kid when I'm at NBA games. Oh, everyone's so tall, whatever. Dude, seeing Wemby was unbelievable. I mean, it wasn't even the best game, and it was a blowout. They completely murdered the Suns, who were missing Dillon Brooks because he was suspended for that one, and Book got hurt really early on in that game, so it was totally non-competitive. I tried to cherish every Wemby moment that I got in that game, and he had like a play where he blocked a guy and then blocked another guy in the same play and then ran a fast break, and it should have been a lob to Wemby, but somebody messed it up and they ended up turning it over. But then I have had really great luck at sporting events lately where I'll take my phone out to like get a photo or record one play. It was a play where Wemby like caught it at like the high school 3-point line area and took like one step, no dribble, and then just yammed it on 2 people. And it's insane how easy he made it to get those steps and cover that much ground. I mean, Wemby's a freak. I've already talked about him way too much. But even the game on Monday against the Pistons, like, wasn't a great offensive game. He was missing his shots. Pistons were so physical with him. And then he just totally took the game over on defense, hit a couple threes down the stretch, and the game was over, and the Spurs won. So we know where Wemby's at, but I just feel like the rest of the team is probably a little under-discussed. I mean, the leap that Castle has taken is insane. He's a dog on both ends of the court. He terrorized Cade Cunningham in that matchup on Monday, and I feel like he's taken a lot better care of the ball lately as a playmaker as well. Having Fox and Vassell, both of those guys just kind of hanging around, I mean, especially De'Aaron Fox, are just such awesome options for bailout, late possession offense. Like, those guys are proven. Fox has always been a clutch player. I love that for them. Even though he hasn't been the most productive with this team, like, they're not asking him to do that much, and that's a nice little role for him. You need consistent minutes from the 5th spot in that team, right? Like, assuming that end of game lineup is Castle and Fox and Wemby and Vassell, like that 5th spot, there's a little bit of question marks right now because Harrison Barnes has completely cratered compared to where he was at the start of the season. But between still having Barnes, having Champagnie, having Keldon Johnson, who's been an awesome spark for them off the bench, I think they'll be able to figure out that spot just fine. And I'd say the last thing for the Spurs is that if Harper flashes a bit more, now he played like 30 minutes in the game last night, looked really good, closed the game for them. If he gets a longer leash down the stretch and gets a little bit more comfortable and stops feeling like he's a rookie and it feels like he's in his second year by the time the playoffs start, that's when it gets really scary because this is still all gravy for the Spurs. You know, I had them as a playoff team and I felt like I was higher than consensus for them heading into the season. And here they are, 42-16, the 2 seed. With how banged up the Thunder are, I think the 1 seed is within question. And to be honest with you, when I first made this list, I had them as crazier things have happened just because we've literally never seen a team with this little experience be treated as a true contender and make a run out of nowhere. You have to take your playoff lumps, at least historically. You need to get that experience. You need to be in those 7-game series. And this team has not been. Wemby has not been. A few of their players have, but most of the team has not. And so how much can you really trust that team? But I just feel like it's unavoidable. Now, we know that there is a generational player on this team. And when you have a generational player, it always happens ahead of schedule. It already feels like they're ahead of schedule this season. So it is not crazy to say Spurs are contenders, man. I really believe if you would take them over Denver, and even just watching Denver last night, I was thinking about what they would look like matched up against the Spurs in a series. And it's going to be really close, man. And not to mention the fact that they have obviously had the Thunder's number this year. I think they played 5 times, and so they're, 4-1 against the Thunder this year. That usually doesn't mean anything once we get into the actual playoffs, but all great signs for the Spurs. So happy I got to see them in person. And I think they're the story of this season, just the leap that they've made. Wemby's development, everybody else. So they are contenders for sure. Home stretch here, just 5 teams left to talk about. Some of these will be pretty quick too. The Memphis Grizzlies, 21-36, 11 seed in the West. They are 3-7 in their last 10 games. You might as well shut down Ja Morant too at this point. I mean, we know Edey isn't coming back. Cedric Coward is banged up. At least they picked a direction with the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. I wanted them to start this rebuild. Didn't seem like there was a market for Ja, so he's still on the team. He just doesn't play basketball anymore. Thought they got a decent haul for Jaren Jackson Jr., but that's really all I got on Memphis. I mean, it's cool to see GG Jackson playing a little bit more now. Like, they had some bad injury luck earlier in the year, and they're just now recently getting like Ty Jerome and Scottie Pippen Jr. back in the mix, who are really fantastic backup guards. Like, there's still the makings of a good team here in Memphis. So I'm glad that they started the rebuild, because I think that sets them up with how well they've drafted lately. They've been doing really well with later on picks. If they get an earlier pick this year, that's going to put them in a really good spot. So at this point, I feel like they're basically leaning into the tank. I don't expect to see Ja Morant down the stretch this season. So they are going right next to Dallas. They haven't been tanking all year long, but they are definitely new wave tankers. Next, we have the Chicago Bulls, 24-35. They are the 12th seed in the East. They're 0-10 in their last 10 games. Now, I'm not entirely sure that it's intentional, but it does feel like they finally picked a direction, right? They made some curious moves at the deadline. They moved on from basically all their bigs, and so they're just like trotting out a bunch of guards. I think we got bummer news that Anthony Simons, I think he has a wrist injury, so I'm kind of thinking he's going to be out for the year now, so that's a huge bummer for them. I don't really know what happened with Josh Giddey. Like, Josh Giddey was balling out of control, and I never believed when the Bulls were like red hot to start the season, but Giddey was legitimately playing at an all-star level at least. Like, he was phenomenal. And lately he's been back in the mix. I know he's had some injuries, but like, just looks like a different dude. Like, the percentages are awful. The turnovers are up. The minutes are down. I don't know what's going on. Like, I personally try to avoid watching the Bulls at all costs, unless it's like the end of a close game and there's no other options on League Pass. I don't know. I'm asking you guys, Bulls fans, what happened to Josh Giddey? Buzelis is very legit. He had a really awesome game the other night, and he's my easily the favorite player on the team. But it's honestly kind of sad that like he is comfortably their most valuable asset. And it does feel like they're tanking now, but again, they started late. They still have 24 wins. That's too big of a gap to make up to have the same odds as like a Washington or an Indiana, other teams in the conference. So long story short, Bulls are an easy selection for new wave tankers. Sad they're going to miss the play-in race this year. I don't think that that's going to happen. So end of a tradition, but probably the right move for the Bulls to move in the other direction as they look to rebuild, hopefully in the near future. Next, we have the Philadelphia 76ers, 32-26, the 6th seed in the East, 5-5 in their last 10 games. Really fun team, fun season. I think we know where this is headed, though. I mean, are you really going to trust Joel Embiid, Paul George, once he's back from his suspension, which I think is coming up at the end of March? Are you trusting those guys to stay healthy for 3+ playoff rounds? I just don't think so. And that's totally fine, right? I mean, the story of the season is that Maxey has taken another leap. He's phenomenal. He'll make an All-NBA team. Love watching Maxey. Everybody in Philly, he's so beloved. He is the face of that team. VJ Edgecombe looks like a hit. The athleticism is off the charts. The ceiling is probably still higher than even a guy like Con Knuppel. I know I've maybe ruffled some feathers with saying that Con would go number 2 in a redraft, but I just feel like that's clear at this point in time. I think that they are going to be a tough out if everybody's healthy, because I will give Embiid a lot of credit. He's been way better this year than I or really anybody else anticipated. Like, when he plays, he's still a fucking problem, even though he's dragging around one leg. He's in and out of the lineup, but his touch, his scoring in the mid-range is just so phenomenal, and obviously the ability to get to the line isn't going anywhere. And so the best version of this team does have Joel Embiid, and they are a 6 seed. I don't know who's going to end up in the 3 seed in the East. I will give them credit in saying that they are a round 1 threat. If Edgecombe has a good shooting couple weeks there, Maxey, we know what he's capable of, and if Embiid is actually playing along with Paul George all at the start of April and they're available for round 1, I could see them winning a round. So I will give them a little bit more respect. I know I just said that Charlotte might be the 5th best team in the East, but I still just feel like the overall ceiling of this year's Philadelphia team is higher. So I'm going to put them with the Lakers, with the Rockets, with the Magic as a round 1 threat. Next, we have the Phoenix Suns, 33-26. They are the 7th seed in the West, but they are 3-7 in their last 10 games. Now, I watched them in person, as I mentioned, against the Spurs in a game last week, and then I also watched them in a full game against the Celtics the other night. And let me just say, with the current situation of the injuries on this team, like they are dog shit. I mean, this is an awful, awful team. And it happens really quick when you lose a guy in Devin Booker, who's obviously the best player, the hub of the offense, and then you lose Dylan Brooks, who was probably definitely their best defensive player and probably their second best offensive player too. Like his isolation scoring this year and his ability to hit really tough shots in the mid-range this year has been really under the radar. I mean, I know everybody hates Dylan Brooks, but he's been so productive, and I think he broke his hand, so not really expecting him to be playing anytime soon. And just like that, you lose your top two guys, and suddenly things are looking really grim, and there's just no source of offense anymore. I mean, sometimes it's Gillespie, sometimes Grayson Allen will have a crazy game, but I don't really know where the points are supposed to come from. And then you have the guy that they took as part of that Kevin Durant return deal at the 10th overall pick in the draft, Malawach from Duke, just can't get on the court at all. Like, I know he was coming in as a raw prospect, but if the dude has been in the G League for most of the year and can barely sniff like a couple minutes a night and they're always in garbage time, like that doesn't bode well. To be honest with you, I did watch like the entirety of the Celtics game. He did kind of look good in a couple moments against like the Celtics G League team at that point. But anyway, I just think that in general, the vibes went from like really fun season. We have an identity. Now they have a couple injuries. They're the 7th seed in the West. They're probably going to plummet below that. I don't really know how serious the Book injury is. I know it's a hip issue, but assuming that he's out like at least another week and we're not going to see Brooks anytime soon, I feel pretty good about putting the Suns in miserable vibes. And I know that might be a little harsh, but they don't have their control of their own pick this year. They're still a middling team. Like, at least they have Booker long term, but beyond that, what do you have? You have an owner that's going to bitch and moan about tanking where, dude, if you had your own pick, you'd be doing the same exact thing. Like, that guy played D1 basketball. He knows how it all works, and he's out here bitching about teams tanking, talking down to people. I get it. You're having a much better season than people expected this year, but you were also so disappointing. You made some bad moves the past couple years, and the long-term outlook of the team is still really bleak. And not having your own pick this year and just having a completely mid-season, and you might not even make the playoffs after all this, yeah, I'd say the vibes around the Suns are pretty miserable. Not entirely their fault, but I feel comfortable putting them there. And finally, the last team we have to talk about, and I promise I did not plan this, my Boston Celtics. They are 38-20, the 2 seed in the East. They are 8-2 in their last 10 games. They were 9-1 in their last 10, and then they dropped one to Denver last night, like we talked about earlier. The big news around the team is that Tatum is practicing in 5v5 scrimmages. That nugget was dropped by ESPN earlier in the week, so it does feel like his return is imminent. I don't know where that Chris Haynes report came from a couple weeks ago, but between all the PR around All-Star break, there was like a 5-minute video segment in the middle of like one of the All-Star weekend nights, like all around Tatum, and NBC had it produced. And so I would expect to see him in the very near future. Shout out my cousin Matt. He said 314 Pi Day as a potential return for Jason Tatum. He's obviously from St. Louis, 314 area code. We're just connecting dots out here. You didn't hear it from me. Inside source, Jason Tatum returned 314. Maybe even before that. We will have to find out. But I'd say the story around the team the past couple weeks, Pritchard's gotten a lot of buzz. He had a really nice stretch. 26 points or above in 3-4 straight games. He was on fire. Came back to earth against the Suns, and he was pretty awful last night against the Nuggets on the second half of that back-to-back. But in general, it does look like Pritchard is really thriving in his role, shifting back to the bench where he's been for most of his career, being that awesome spark off the bench, kind of like what Simons was for us in the early season. He feels really comfortable there. But what's being under-discussed is just how good Baylor Shireman has been. His defense, the effort he gives on that end of the court, his rebounding. I mean, we kind of had him penciled in as like a Hauser clone, but he's definitely given us a bit more edge than I anticipated from him. And it's allowed Mazzulla to feel really confident of putting him into the starting lineup and moving Pritchard to the bench. Like, that doesn't happen unless we see some real growth from Shireman. So wanted to give him a shout out. I feel like Jaylen Brown has come back to earth a little bit, right? Not quite as consistent as he was in the early seasons. You know, some people starting to poke holes in the on-off metrics and some of the shooting efficiency, but I'm not going to get mad at JB. He's been unbelievable this season. I still think he's got a very strong argument to be made for first-team All-NBA. Early returns on Vooch. You know, I can't say I'm impressed, right? It hasn't been great. He was pretty awful in that Denver game last night. I mean, he's been in a little bit of a shooting slump, which doesn't help, and then you include all the defensive concerns and the fact that he's always been a pretty bad defender. Now he's even a little bit older now. So, look, I can't say I love it, but especially after Simons broke his wrist, I don't know if that would have happened if he was still in the Celtics. I can't get too mad at that trade. I still feel like he's still much more comfortable with him on the court, especially in a playoff setting compared to Garza. So I think that's all good and fun. But I do feel like the past couple of weeks, now that we've been in control of the 2 seed for the better part of like most of the season at this point, I feel like there's a shift happening, and it's moving away from being the cute, fun team that nobody thought was going to have a good season, that this was supposed to be a tanking, rebuilding year, whatever. Like, we're moving away from that. This team is just straight up a good team. They pants teams like the Lakers. They take care of the bad teams. They don't often drop ones to shit teams. Their offense is legitimately very special. The defense isn't the best version of we've seen of recent Celtics teams, but it's still really proficient. And I don't really know if it's a real story or if it's just like a talking head thing, but I could not be less concerned about reinserting Jason Tatum into this team. Now, I don't know what version of Jason Tatum we're going to get. Some people are like, oh, I'd love if he was just 15 minutes a game and like he gets 12 and 8 or something like. And I'm like, dude, I do have higher expectations for Tatum than that. Like, I would expect him to be a little bit closer to the 20-point range once he's back up to like a real minutes workload and whatever. It will be a bit of a slow rollout for the rest of the regular season. But just in general, like, I don't think it's a real story of, oh, how is he going to affect the team and how is it going to change the chemistry and what's it going to be like with him and Brown. Jason Tatum is so additive as a player. He's obviously a phenomenal scorer and all that stuff, but like, it's the little things. It's the defense. It's the rebounding. It's the fact that he can guard multiple positions. Like, I don't know what that's going to look like post Achilles, but assuming he gets up to 85%, 90% by the time we get into the heat of the playoffs, I think this team's going to be really special, man. I don't think there's going to be any awkwardness, like maybe a few moments here or there, but this team is too well coached. They've played together for too long. The chemistry with him and Brown is too solid. Anybody saying that it might disrupt things for the current Celtics and be any sort of negative that he's back in the mix, like changing the flow of the offense, I just think that's ridiculous. It's a total non-starter. And even if it is a significantly reduced version of Tatum, he does all the little things so well that it's going to be a net positive for this team one way or the other. And all those things told, I think they are right there in that second tier. They don't deserve to be like a true contender. Like, that would just be projecting Jason Tatum to be 100% right away and adding him in. I'm not going to go crazy and say that, but they're right there with the Cavs, right there with the Knicks. They're coming out of the weaker conference, and I would bet on my team over those other teams in the tier that they're in, but I can't go as far as to saying they're on the same level as Detroit. I just feel like Detroit has put himself above and beyond every other team in the East with how consistent they've been all year, the athletes, the youth, the defense, all that good stuff. But I would put my Celtics one tier below and feel pretty comfortable with that. So that's it for our tier ranking. That is all 30 NBA teams. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Maybe this is a podcast that gets me out the mud, man. I don't know. The tier rankings on YouTube, they kind of do numbers. So I'm not often a guy like, talking about the growth of the podcast, whatever, but I'm just saying, next thing you know, get a little extra views on the tier ranking pod. 4th chair on the Hoop Collective, just like that. Me, Simmons, Zach Lowe, Sunday nights. Who says no? 3rd chair there. Hoop Collective, Ringer, hit me up. I'm available. Just saying. So let's quickly run through these tiers before we get on out of here. Starting at the top, we have the contenders. I wanted to go with 3 teams here because I just feel like in the NBA, the best team usually wins. There's not really that many teams that have a true shot with the 7-game series format, all that stuff. But this year is kind of different. I feel like there's a lot of parity at the top. So the contenders, we have 4 teams: OKC, Denver, Detroit, and the Spurs, my most recent addition to this tier. We have the second tier, crazier things have happened. We have the Timberwolves, the Knicks, the Cavs, and the Celtics. Third tier, round 1 threats. We have the Magic, the Rockets, the Lakers, and the Sixers. We have the 4th tier, mid-end fun. We have the Hawks, the Heat, the Raptors, the Clippers, and the Hornets. We have the 5th tier, miserable vibes. We have the Pelicans, Warriors, Bucks, Blazers, and Suns. 6th tier, we have new wave tankers, the Mavericks, Grizzlies, and Bulls. And then finally, the OG tankers, the ones that have been tanking all season long, the Nets, Jazz, Pacers, Wizards, and Kings. So let me know where you disagree. I feel pretty good about this list, though. I mean, all things told, there were a couple teams in like those middle tiers between like, oh, is this team mid and fun? Are they a round 1 threat? Are they bad vibes? I mean, those tiers are whatever. But at the top, those top 2 tiers, I feel pretty good about it. Top 2, 3 tiers, where it really matters, I feel like we did a pretty good job with this exercise. But as always, feel free to comment, follow @WordsWithWallace on everything. That includes Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcast, plus on social media. Definitely check out the YouTube, particularly for this episode, as well as Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. Just let me know where you disagree, where you agree, how to do with this tier list. You guys know where to find me. We will be back with another episode next week, to be honest with you. No idea what that episode's going to hold. Maybe we'll do a guest. Maybe we'll focus on whatever the biggest storylines are in the NBA. But we will have another podcast then, and I will talk to you next week. Peace.